On September 12, 2018, a report was released by the U.S. Census Bureau that stated that around 12.3% of the American people were living in poverty. That is 1 in 8 Americans. However, what does that statistic really mean? When looking at these images, would you consider these individuals to be living in poverty based off of their outward appearance and physical belongings? Probably not. However, according to an article published in 2011 by Rachel Sheffield and Robert Rector, many Americans have a gross misconception of what poverty looks like. The liberal-leaning news media and activist groups utilize social media as a platform to distort the realities of poverty. While we agree that social media has become an area where politically motivated news outlets have had the opportunity to distort the realities of poverty, we still think that through the employment of the correct system, such as the SPM, there is a way to achieve income equality. In addition, we agree with Rector in that families can own luxury goods, such as TVs and Xboxes, and still be suffering immensely because of income inequality. We think that Rector's text suggests that all individuals should approach poverty with an open mind and refrain from judging or stereotyping individuals based off of their material possessions. So what is poverty? We believe poverty to be having insufficient capabilities that prevent achieving functionings to live a dignified life. Capabilities are substantial freedoms. They are the component of what do you want to do. Martha Nussbaum, a University of Chicago scholar, identifies what she believes to be the 10 essential capabilities to leading a dignified life. These include life, bodily health, bodily integrity, senses, imagination and thought, emotions, practical reason, affiliation, other species, play, control over one's environment. Out of this list, we believe the 4 most critical capabilities are life, emotions, and bodily health and integrity. We selected these 4 out of Nussbaum's list because we believe that they are the most relevant capabilities for an individual to have in the context of distinguishing if they are able to live a dignified life. Functionings can be described as, quote, not just the abilities residing inside a person, but also the freedoms or opportunities created by a combination of personal abilities and their political, social, and economic environment, end quote. In other words, functionings are beings and doings that are the outgrowths or realizations of capabilities.
For example, Serena and Ryan are both high school graduates. Serena is a highly motivated student and wants to attend a university. However, she must stay home and work to provide for her family. Ryan comes from a very wealthy family and does not wish to attend college because he would rather stay home and live off his $4 billion trust fund, which he inherited in his senior year of high school. While both individuals share the functioning of not attending college, they do not share the capability of having the opportunity to do so. We believe there is a strong correlation between our definition of poverty and the ways in which we should measure it. While the social, political, and economic conditions of a society play a role in achieving capabilities and therefore functionings, we think that they are strongly tied to income. We believe that having a detailed analysis of income provides a more accurate representation of possible capabilities and functionings. The government currently uses the Official Poverty Measure, or OPM, for official poverty statistics. However, the Supplemental Poverty Measure, or SPM, is also used for more informal reasons and to have a deeper look into poverty in the United States. We believe that the SPM is a greater indicator and more thorough representation of the poverty issue in the U.S. than what is provided by the OPM. Developed in the 1960s, the OPM defines resources as the gross annual pre-tax income plus cash welfare benefits like disability checks. Unlike the SPM, the OPM excludes in-kind benefits, near-cash benefits, and non-discretionary expenses. In-kind benefits are benefits from the government like food stamps. Near-cash benefits are tax credits from the government. Non-discretionary expenses are unavoidable costs like childcare, work transportation, and medical out-of-pocket expenses. The threshold used for the OPM is 3 times the minimum cost of food to account for shelter, electricity, and utilities. The threshold is adjusted for inflation by the CPI and for the size and age of the family. The threshold used is quite outdated. The advent of new technologies and society's progressive nature has changed family compositions and individual spendings since the 1960s. the OPM doesn't adjust for the living expenses in different areas of the country. The official poverty measure, or OPM, is the current system for measuring poverty in the U.S. It does not examine a household's resources as deeply as the SPM. It does not make sufficient adjustments. In addition, the OPM can be described as an absolute measure of poverty, in that it contains a threshold or line that remains the same over time. Employing a system that utilizes an absolute measure is dangerous because it does not consider how one family is doing in relation to another and views each family unit as an independent and singular entity. When using a more comprehensive system, such as a relative measure, the government is able to analyze the notion of poverty relative to society's existing level of economic, social, and cultural development. Ned and Kelly both earn $12,000 a year working in the food industry. Ned lives in a small home his parents bought for him in Iowa, while Kelly lives in a studio apartment in the Bronx. Ned doesn't pay any rent, but Kelly has to spend $800 a month on rent. Both of them live alone. While they have the same resources and family composition as defined by the OPM, their standards of living are drastically different, and the OPM does not account for this when considering their levels of poverty.
The SPM provides a more in-depth analysis of one's level of poverty. The SPM defines resources as cash income, in-kind benefits like food stamps, and near-cash benefits. Non-discretionary expenses are then subtracted from this total. The threshold for these resources are the expenditures of food, clothing, shelter, and utilities expenses of the 33rd percentile multiplied by 1.2. The 33rd percentile is used because it represents a comfortable standard of living. When looking at one's economic stability, the 50th percentile, for example, would be too high and include unnecessary luxuries. However, something lower, like the 25th percentile, would not represent a comfortable standard of living and not include sufficient capabilities. Since we define poverty as having insufficient capabilities, having a threshold too low would not account for the necessary level of comfort. That threshold is then multiplied by 1.2 since there is more spending beyond these basic needs. Adjustments are made for differences in the cost of living across the country and family compositions. Living costs are highly variable throughout the country. For example, living in Manhattan is much more costly than living on a farm in Idaho.
In the 21st century, families have non-traditional compositions. People often will live with their unmarried partner or have extended family in the home. There are families of single parents and ones with children being raised by grandparents or aunts and uncles. The current system relies on the so-called normal family compositions of the 1960s, which do not correlate with those of today's society. Thus, SPM provides a more accurate representation, and therefore provides a more accurate representation of income. While we believe our definition is the most comprehensive and detailed analysis of poverty, we also acknowledge that there are certainly counterarguments that could be made against our presentation. For example, although we are utilizing the SPM system of measurement, we are aware of the fact that this strategy still uses an absolute threshold like the OPM. Having absolute thresholds does not address the depth of poverty by failing to acknowledge the relative aspects of it. Those who fall just above the line still can suffer financially, yet they do not receive government benefits. Those who fall just below the line are considered in poverty and will receive the benefits. One person is considered poor, the other not, yet their standards of living are not much different. In addition, we also know that the SPM is adjusted for family composition. However, in today's modern American society, there are a variety of complicated family dynamics. It is difficult to stay updated on changing family compositions. A solution could be requesting households to submit forms when family compositions change. However, this relies on the uncertain cooperation of the American citizens and may not be an effective method. Thank you for watching!